If you're over 40, overtraining can destroy muscle faster than anything else. And if you're under 40, this is exactly what will happen later if you ignore it now. People lose muscle as they age because they train too much, too long, and in the wrong way. I'm Dr. Nash Jocic, former bodybuilding champion. I've been in bodybuilding for over 40 years. I competed 46 times and won 17 titles. In the meantime, I have trained over 3,500 clients and helped them to get in the best shape of their lives. Also, I have published 11 ebooks for you, which are fully loaded with detailed explanation about everything you always wanted to know about bodybuilding. Things like muscle growth, training systems, training splits, number of reps, number of sets, nutrition, fat loss, lifestyle change, and much, much more. So if you're interested in enriching your knowledge, simply click on the link in the comments and you can access my ebooks. Let me start with the biggest training myth, which has caused loss of muscle in so many people, especially after age of 40. The biggest myth in fitness is that more training always means more progress. There are few fundamentals of this wrong theory, and number one is that more sessions for the same muscle per week will give you better results. Number two is that you need to use heavier weights, and number three, that you need to train to failure. So these three fundamentals, these three delusional propositions are actually what stops people growing and also make people lose muscle as they age. So let me now break down every single one of these supposedly beneficial advices. So let me start with more session for the same muscle. This applies to everyone, not just people over 40. This applies to you even now when you're 20, 30. But if you're ignoring this now, you will pay the price as you start aging. So for whatever reasons, there were a lot of quasi-scientific researches done on the subject of training each muscle twice per week or 3 times per week, meaning that by training them more often, you will actually make better results. This is absolutely false, and I have explained this in detail in many of my videos in which I suggest the best training split and frequency for every muscle group. So this fundamental delusion will actually slow down your progress and make you lose muscle as you age. The second one is that you need to use more weight. So heavier weights you lift, better you will be, more muscle you will gain. But this is another illusion, and this is false, because bodybuilding is nothing to do with weightlifting. So your muscles, they just simply don't care how much weight you lift. All they care is about mechanical tension and time under tension, obviously executed in perfect form. So if you don't follow these principles that I have explained again in detail in many videos, you will basically damage yourself. And this is simply unavoidable. As you age, you won't be able to lift heavier weights, but you don't have to lift heavier weights in order to continue to grow muscle as you age. Now, number three delusion is that you have to train to failure. This training to failure is probably one of the biggest lies ever introduced to bodybuilding. Yes, it looks good on camera, it looks good on YouTube, it looks good on Instagram, Facebook, when you are screaming and performing some life-saving last rep, because this is how the real men train. But this is absolute nonsense. Whoever has done it, natural, enhanced, professional or intermediates, amateurs, whoever, doesn't matter, they all have got injured, and they got badly injured. Just look at the history of bodybuilding and you will see so many proponents of this so-called system in which training to failure is fundamental. They ended up with torn biceps, triceps, shoulders, quads, chest, you name it. Well, why? Absolute nonsense. They just didn't know what they're doing. And if you want to end up like that, then follow them, no problem. But this is not the way to go. These false principles, they may work for a short period of time until they don't. And age is absolutely the turning point. So as you age, you need to understand why things are changing in order to save your muscle tissue, to continue to grow your muscle tissue. And obviously, the most important thing is to avoid injuries. What changes with age? Why age changes everything? Because there are obviously few physiological reasons for that. As you age, your recovery slows. Your hormonal response changes. Your joint tolerance decreases, and your nervous system fatigue accumulates. What once used to be stimulating growth now is becoming stress. So mistake that a lot of people are making is trying to train the same as they were 25. Now they are 40 or 50 or 60 and they still want to do the same. This is a mistake. As we age, we become wiser. That doesn't mean that your growth will slow and you're going to lose your muscles, but that means that you need to adapt to your age and apply knowledge that I'm trying to offer you in this video, so you continue safely, number one, very important, safely without injuries, to maintain your muscle mass or eventually to increase your muscle mass. Yes, you can increase your muscle mass at any stage of your life because muscles grow regardless of your age. You can be 70, you can start training now and you will increase muscle mass. So I hope you will apply this knowledge that I'm giving it to you now, this information, and continue to be healthy without injuries and maintaining or even gaining muscle mass. Let me tell you a few words about overtraining now. So overtraining is not about effort. It's about poor recovery. As we age, our hormones shift and recovery is not the same as it used to be when we were 25, when we were full of testosterone, full of growth hormone, where our tissues repair quickly. Now, the second reason is excessive weight, forcing you to do wrong form. You have seen so many times in the gym people of all age performing very bad form, squatting, bench pressing, leg pressing, shoulder pressing, doing bent over rowing, biceps curls and similar exercises. And the only reason for that is because they believe, as I mentioned earlier, that heavy weights are actually the reason for muscle growth. And as you age, you need to lift heavier in order to maintain or build muscle. Absolutely wrong. So forget about lifting weights. Bodybuilding is not lifting weights. Bodybuilding is using weights, it's training with weights. We use resistance in order to train, in order to perform exercises in perfect form, but not necessarily just heavy weights. Also, the third reason why overtraining happens is too much frequency. We have been bombarded in the last couple of decades with some pseudo-scientific researches on completely incompetent, irrelevant people who were used as subjects in experiments and shown that if they train every muscle twice per week, they will make better progress. But these people were not bodybuilders. These people didn't spend in the gym months or years or decades as I did, as you did, as so many other people did. These people were all untrained athletes. The number of these people on which they experimented was minuscule. There were like 10, 20, 30 people, not more than that. Most of them were nurses, college kids, and again, most importantly, untrained people. So you can put untrained people in any change of environment and they will absolutely change. But that doesn't mean that it's going to work for you. So this is the problem, again, that too much frequency basically causes overtraining. The fourth reason why overtraining is happening is constant training to failure. That myth that you, as a real man, you have to go all out in every set, screaming, falling down on the ground, putting on theatrical presentation after every set. It's just sad to see that how a lack of knowledge can destroy people. And I've seen so many of them actually getting injured with really bad injuries just because they were training to failure. They had to go to that last rep. This especially applies to people over 40. So if you're over 40, and I will explain to you why is that in a minute, you should stay away from failure and you should stay away from very heavy weights. You should listen to your body and you should listen to the advice that I'm giving it to you if you want to continue to maintain your muscle mass, stay in good shape, and even build more muscle. So how overtraining looks like as you age? What happens? How can you discover that you're actually overtraining yourself. So first of all, your strength starts plateauing. So your overload dies. So you are constantly using the same weights in all exercises for months and months and months, and you can't use a little bit heavier weights. As I have explained, the proper application of overload principle. Also, your muscles started feeling flat, and this is obviously because of a lack of stimulation through sufficient mechanical tension and time under tension, which is absolutely impossible to achieve if you are chasing weights, if you're training to failure, and if you're using wrong form. Also, you are sore for longer. You feel that you're not necessarily your muscles, but your connective tissues are sore for much, much longer than it should be. The fourth sign is that you're getting achy joints. So more often your elbows start aching, your shoulders, maybe your knees or lower back. And this is in a repetitive cycle. So this is another sign that you're overtraining. Also, declining motivation especially happens in people who are training every muscle 2 or 3 times per week. They start losing motivation. And when you start losing motivation, this is absolutely a very transparent sign that you are overtrained. And on top of that, as a cherry on the cake, even training more, you are losing shape. So all these are signs of overtraining that you should acknowledge. You should reconsider your training system, your diet, and you should actually apply the advice that I'm giving you in this video. Let me explain to you now why joints start hurting more as you age. As we age, our body starts becoming more fragile, and the properties of connective tissues slowly change. Most training advice simply ignore this, like they don't care. They will give you advice and treat you all these muscle heads on YouTube and so-called experts. They will say to you, just you go heavy, train every muscle 2 per week, go all out, heavy duty training system and similar nonsense. But you're going to end up injured. And now I'm going to explain to you clearly why your joints start aching as you age. Number one thing to mention is collagen, right? So with age, collagen turnover slows down. Collagen is the primary structural protein, now listen carefully, in tendons, ligaments, fascia, and joint capsules. So collagen is not only tendons, collagen is also ligaments, but also fascia. So with a slower turnover, your collagen is making all these tissues actually more fragile and weaker. So you have to understand this. So it's not only muscle that recovers in 48 to 72 hours, as I explained clearly in one of my previous videos, but you need to understand that recovery is not only muscle recovery, because when you're training your muscles, you're also training your tendons, ligaments, and fascia. Fascia is that connective tissue that surrounds muscle fibers and bundles of muscle fibers and the whole muscle, and they're all connective tissue, and they all need to recover. If they don't recover, you are going to get injured. There is absolutely no doubt about it. So for them to recover, you need extra 2, 3, 4 days, depending on age, depending on individual. So as I mentioned, in a comfortable bracket of 7 days, you should train every muscle once in 7 days. Not only to allow recovery of your central nervous system, but also to allow the full recovery, not only of your muscles, but also all of your connective tissues, which are made of collagen as a structural protein. And again, we're talking about tendons, ligaments, fascia, and also joint capsules. So when you're younger, collagen turnover is faster. So you recover collagen much faster. You can literally recover faster than when you are over 40, for example. Micro damages in the connective tissues, they are repaired quickly. And all your tissues, including all these connective tissues, they adapt rapidly to stress. So this is how it looks when you're younger. But as you age, collagen synthesis slows. All collagen is replaced more slowly. That was the case in your younger days. And also, damage accumulates faster than repair. So the damage that happens in connective tissues is not only when you really tear that connective tissue during the exercise, but most likely and most often is accumulated damage, something that has happened over the period of time. It can be weeks, it can be months, but you have put too much stress on your connective tissues, on your tendons and ligaments and fascia, and they simply cannot recover over the period of time. And therefore, they will start first aching, and eventually they can get injured or torn. Another thing to mention is the loss of elasticity in connective tissue. So young connective tissue behaves like a fresh elastic band. Old connective tissue behaves more like the used one. So while it's a fresh elastic band, you can stretch it more often, shouldn't have any problem. But the used one, if you keep stretching, it will snap. So this is how connective tissue, literally in this descriptive, image of elastic band, should be understood. Very simple also to remember. So with age, collagen fibers become more cross-linked, elasticity decreases, and tissue resists stretch instead of absorbing it. Now, that will obviously end up in greater strain on the tendon of bone junction, more stress transfer to joint, and higher injury risk. Another thing that I want to tell you is very important, and this is reduced water content in the cartilage with age. So cartilage is not inert, it's hydrated living tissue. And over time, cartilage loses water content, nutrition diffusion slow, and shock absorption decreases. So it's almost like a shock absorber. But over time, the cartilage simply loses that absorption ability of the stress. And this leads to more friction inside the joint. You have experienced most of the time this is impingement in your shoulder. Happens very often with age, and this is when your bursa inside your shoulder joint gets pressured, and then you constantly have that ache. Also, less tolerance to high frequency loading, and also faster irritation from repetitive movements. This is why you have to pay attention, especially to warm up. You maybe need a little bit longer warm up in order to prepare your joints for work. In order to, for example, in shoulders, you warm up properly, maybe 5-10 minutes, in order to start producing synovial liquid, which is actually acting as an oil. This is a liquid which will lubricate the joint and eliminate the friction, reduce the friction, and obviously keep the bursa safer, because now there is a more lubrication in the joint. Recovery days also matter, and again, I cannot repeat it and emphasize it more. You should train every muscle once a week, especially if you are over 40, and also if you're under 40, but especially for age over 40. So you allow that unit, not just muscles, but the whole unit which is involved in exercise, joints, tendons, ligaments, fascia, you allow them enough time to recover. So next time when you do the same muscle group, let's say legs or shoulders, your joints and your connective tissues are 100% recovered, so you are safe and ready to go again. And you need to understand that volume, as you age, although this applies to everybody, I explained it again in many videos, especially because of sarcoplasmic growth, which is the growth that happens in bodybuilding more than myofibrillar growth. And this is why so many people benefited for decades by training high volume, high number of sets and reps in every workout. So especially over 40, volume matters more than load alone. So pay attention to volume, pay attention to the necessary number of sets, as I advised, anywhere from 20 to 30 for large muscle groups and anywhere from 12 to 16 for smaller muscle groups. Tendons adapt slower than muscles. So for I don't know how many times I have repeated this, that you need to recover your tendons. You need to give your body 7 days at least. Some people say I need 8. Some people say I need 10. Fine, this is individual, but I'm talking average. I'm giving you some point of reference. So not 7 because God made week of 7 days, but because it's happened that in this consequential recovery of muscles, connective tissues, and also CNS, you end up in a comfort zone within 7 days. So you train every muscle once per week, or again, in some cases, in 8 days or 9 days. So from everything I just said, what is your key takeaway? Aging does not mean that you should start training light with lighter weights. It means that you train smarter. Again, I said so many times, for me, there is no such a thing as heavy weights and light weights. This is absolute nonsense. It's very relative. So what is heavy for me may be light for you. I don't consider light or heavy weights. I'm only talking about right weights because I'm not looking at the world as world of softwares or clones, which are all the same. I see a new individual. Therefore, what is right for you, it may not be right for me. It may be light for me or maybe too heavy for me, but it doesn't matter. I need to find a weight that I can complete advised number of sets and reps in every workout. That weight is going to be the right weight. So the problem is not effort, load, or commitment. The problem is excess volume when you're training every muscle 2 or 3 times per week. Insufficient recovery, again, happens when you train every muscle, let's say, twice per week. That unit, not just muscle, unit never recovers sufficiently, and therefore you accumulate injury, which will happen over a period of days, weeks, or months, regardless, but it will come unavoidably. Now, let me explain to you the muscle loss mechanism. So, muscle is not lost because you're older. Muscle is lost because cortisol stay elevated. Training should not last longer than 45 minutes. And also, because if you train longer than that, you're going to start producing cortisol instead of burning glycogen. This is the mechanism, simple as clear as a cut. And also, what also produces cortisol is intense or semi-intense cardio. So if you perform intense cardio after your workout or before your workout or in the morning, as you do 4 or 5 training sessions per week, this is enough. So you don't need any extra intense or medium intensity cardio exercise. That will simply pump cortisol, and this is what will cause cortisol to stay elevated, and this will make you lose muscle because cortisol burns muscle tissue in order to turn protein into glucose. If you do any type of so-called cardio, which I would rather like to call low intensity, long duration exercise, I advise you to go outdoors, go to the park, go to the forest, and walk for 40 to 60 minutes, 3-4 times per week. Moderate pace, normal walk, breathe through your nose, and you will have the whole bunch of benefits. I'm going to do the special video just on that, why outdoor walking outperforms indoor cardio. Also, you lose muscle because protein synthesis cannot keep up. As we age, our ability to absorb protein lowers. So with age, we need more protein, not less. This is very important to understand. I hope you've seen my previous video about the sustainable diet, in which I explained that in detail. But for now, remember, you need more protein, not less. Third reason why muscle decreases with age is that recovery is incomplete. Again, the best example for that is if you train every muscle twice per week. You cannot recover. You cannot recover the whole unit involved in that exercise. I'm talking about muscles, joints, tendons, ligaments. And also you cannot recover the central nervous system because you are hitting it for the same unit twice per week. So incomplete recovery is going to cause loss of muscle tissue. And the fourth reason why you lose muscle with age is that your training becomes catabolic, especially, again, if you train the same muscle too frequently. Overtraining shifts the body into maintenance or breakdown mode. So how clever bodybuilders manage to last long? There are a lot of bodybuilders, even professional bodybuilders, who actually competed on the age of 50 or 60, or even older, And they manage to do that without any problem. So how do they do that? What do they do in order to stay very lean, in good shape, to preserve muscle and also build muscle as they age? So number one, they train each muscle less frequently, once a week. Number two, they are focusing on quality reps. So not on junk volume, not on force reps, negatives, going all out, going to failure in every session, in every set. They don't do that. They're focusing on the quality reps. They don't chase volume for its own sake. They know exactly the right number of reps and the right number of sets that they should apply for every muscle group once per week. And this is why they keep staying in that fantastic shape. They don't live in constant fatigue. So training intelligently will stimulate, as Lee Haney said, but it will not obliterate not only your muscle, but also your central nervous system. So if you are training 4 or 5 times per week and you are fully motivated, energized for every training session, you're doing perfect. But if you are training 6 times per week, every muscle twice per week, and you lost motivation, you feel tired, but you have to do it because you know hard work pays off. Not at all. No, clever work pays off, not only hard work. So you need to avoid being in constant fatigue. And these distinctions that I just mentioned, they matter much more as you age. So what about modern fitness? Modern fitness makes these things worse because modern advice is that you need to train with high frequency. It's much better to train every muscle twice per week than once a week, or even 3 times per week. Or they found out, because they experimented on whoever, completely irrelevant people in our case, and they found out that when they train twice per week, they grow more muscle. Really? I've just explained to you the tons of reasons why you should not train every muscle twice per week. Also, another advice that only training to failure is going to make you grow. And obviously that has been proven wrong in so many cases, sometimes even with catastrophic injuries. And the third advice that modern fitness is pushing is to lift heavy. So muscle will not grow unless you lift heavy. And people are getting this wrong because lifting heavy weights, again, they don't exist. They are only right weights. So when people start to match somebody else in the gym or some digits or numbers prescribed by their so-called experts online, they just start doing junk volume and they're killing their central nervous system while not hitting the particular muscle. I've seen hundreds of people who are lifting very heavy weights, let's say doing squats or bench press, but they never develop their legs or their chest, but they can lift. So these 3 advices, high frequency, constant going to failure, and lift heavy, are actually what makes all this situation worse. And this is something that has been pushed by modern fitness. So what you should do instead as you age, first of all, you need to reduce your junk volume. Training twice per week is junk volume, right? So your first session is junk because it wasn't sufficient. You didn't do enough sets, enough reps, enough intensity, as I explained intensity. Second one is definitely going to be junk because you didn't recover. So your effort is going to be 50, 60%, never 100. So you should avoid that as junk volume. Also going to failure or beyond failure, you have to remember that all of these last reps performed to failure are always junk because they're not performing in the perfect form. Just look at the guys who go to failure and look what they do in the last 2-3 reps. They just do wrong movements. The form is out of window, and this is exactly what is called junk failure. So that is the number one thing that you should avoid. Number 2, you should train every muscle less frequently, as mentioned, once per week. And that is going to be more effective, especially because you're going to do enough sets and reps to stimulate growth. So stick to once per week for most of you. Number 3, as mentioned, you should stop chasing failure in every session. It's not necessary. You should be shy of failure, 1 to 2 reps. If you do enough sets, you will always end up with doing more quality reps than doing less sets to failure. And also you will avoid injuries and overtaxing your central nervous system. Number 4, you need to prioritize your sleep and your nutrition because sleep is when the muscles grow, and this is when you recover your muscles because of production of growth hormone. Obviously, nutrition is sine qua non, as we say in science. You condition without, you cannot do things. You have to eat high protein, medium fat, low carb diet as a most sustainable diet that you can follow for the rest of your life without any problems or interruptions. And also respect your rest days. So when it's your rest day, the only thing that I suggest you can do is to go for a nice stroll, a nice walk, nothing too fast, nothing too intense. Spend 60 minutes in nature, and that will benefit you greatly. So let me give you a few final thoughts. Overtraining doesn't show up overnight. It shows up years later as lost muscle, stalled progress, and also frustration. So you want to avoid that. It accumulates over months, over years, and especially shows up over 40. If you want to keep a muscle as you age, you must stop training like you were training when you were 25, or training to prove something. Train to grow, train to recover, and train to last. Let me remind you once again that I have published 11 ebooks for you, books that will help you dramatically to improve your shape and grow muscle. As for thousands of people so far that has happened, you can just read the comments and you will see how people benefit from getting that information from me. My books are fully loaded with detailed explanation about everything you always wanted to know about bodybuilding, muscle growth, fat loss, training systems, training splits, number of reps, number of sets, nutrition, and much, much more. So if you are interested in expanding your knowledge, please click on the link in the comments and you can access my ebooks. I would also like you to watch this video in which I offer my other services, the ways that I can help you one-to-one personally achieve the best results and get in the best shape of your life. Services like personalized training programs, personalized nutritional programs, telephone consultations, online coaching, and also personal training for people who live in London. I hope you have enjoyed this video, and if you did, please subscribe to my channel, like the video, share the video, and also send me your comments. And until the next video, take care of yourselves.